Human Resource Committee meeting today. As you can see, Chairman De Lima is not here. I believe he was requested to go to Congress and solve the investigation problems. So anyway, I'm here today, Hubert Min, and before we call this meeting to order, as a reminder, the public can call in or log on to listen to board meetings live. Please make sure to speak clearly into the microphone so that the people listening outside can hear. Presenters and many people testifying, please clearly state your name and position before starting. I call this meeting to order at 9:33. Do we have any public testimony on our agenda today, Gina?
Yes, we do, Vice Chair. Amy Peruso, HSTA.
Thank you.
Aloha, Vice Chairman and committee members. My name is Amy Peruso, and I am the HSTA Secretary Treasurer. And I'm here today to address the content of the presentation you're going to see a little bit later. So in the strategic plan, we see an over-reliance on professional development and teacher mentoring as an effort to address the long-term crisis in the as far as the teacher shortage is concerned. So teachers have expended a great deal of energy over the past almost 2 years educating the board members about how and why EES, the educator effectiveness system, not only makes educators less effective, but also contributes to this teacher shortage crisis. We have made some progress, and we were able to de-link student test scores from teacher evaluations when ESSA made that possible. And I think that was an important accomplishment for the teachers, and they supported that move. But we have not been able to really address the debilitating effects of the teacher evaluation system because its genesis is misunderstood. For almost 2 years, teachers, after sharing all of the ways in which EES cripples their teaching and makes a mockery of their profession, have been told that the board cannot address the problem of EES because EES is a product of contract negotiation and so needs to be resolved at the table. Nothing could be further from the truth. What was previously Board Policy 2055 and is now Board Policy 203.4 never emerged from an agreement made at the table. Rather, after the teachers refused to ratify a tentative agreement with the employer in January 2012, Governor Abercrombie went to the legislature in an attempt to enact teacher evaluation into state law. By March 2012, it is clear that this effort would be unsuccessful. In April 2012, with the race to the top ground from the federal government threatened by the state's failure to comply with the teacher evaluation requirement, Governor Abercrombie approached the Board of Education. The Board of Education at that time was led by Don Horner and filled with Governor Abercrombie's appointees, and the governor was able to anchor the language he sought on teacher evaluation into Board Policy 2055. The adverse consequences of this policy-making decision are still being felt in classrooms across the state years later. It was not until April of 2013 that a contract framed by this Board of Education policy was settled and ratified. Suffice it to say that EES did not come from the table. Teachers were not able to negotiate on it because it was embedded in Board of Education policy, and it is impossible for us to address this issue at the table as long as the language of Board Policy 203.4 stands as is. We are not seeking the elimination of Board Policy 203.4. We are simply seeking to modify the language of this policy so we can actually negotiate it at the table. And the language that we are seeking is in my written testimony. So this change in policy reflects the direction we need to take with the new flexibility provided under ESSA. While the department has claimed that the superintendent has made the changes suggested by the Joint Committee per the agreement process, allowing it to improve every year, our own Joint Committee members have testified here that their recommendations and the feedback of teachers have not been sufficiently addressed. Our members of the Joint Committee have been and still are calling for dramatic revision and to make this policy subject to collective bargaining. EES is onerous, unfair, and unproductive, and is not a sufficiently supportive system that improves teacher practice. It is not working, and in fact is driving good teachers out of the system. We ask that you take this into consideration when thinking about teacher recruitment and retention.
Thank you, Amy. I'll address this after.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, no further testimony at this time.
If there's no public testimony, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Approval of our minutes, February 21st. In your meeting packets are the minutes of February 21st, 2017, Human Resource Committee meeting. Please take a moment to review them. If there are no revisions, can I get a motion and a second to approve the minutes? They moved and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? And carried. The minutes have been approved. We now have to move on to a presentation of our only discussion item, a presentation on Leadership Institute programs, including teacher induction and administrative development. Call on Barbara Craig, Assistant Superintendent of the Office of Human Resources, to introduce the presenters for this agenda item. We also have received much testimony in this area.
Good morning. My role today is actually to give an introduction and the context to the presentation, and then I'll hand it over to two of the actual presenters here today. With me are Terry Ushijima, Complex Area Superintendent on assignment to the Leadership Institute Executive Director position, and Carolyn Tsukamoto, the Administrator of the Teacher Induction and Mentoring section of the Leadership Institute. What I will do is just, as I said, sort of set the context here so that you understand where the presentation is what the foundation for the presentation and for the work. So as we all know, we're working now under our revised strategic plan, the 2017 to 2020 strategic plan. The Leadership Institute certainly predates that, but the Leadership Institute, as you'll be hearing, is really the cornerstone for the Goal 2, Staff Success, Objective 1, Focused Professional Development for our, in this case, our certificated employees. Even though we won't be going more into detail on it, I would also point out that the work of the Leadership Institute also aligns to achieving our Objective 3, Expanded Professional Pipeline. As you'll hear, the Leadership Institute is the state office entity responsible for the development of our certificated employees from teacher leader development through the vice principal and principal certifications, through the development and mentoring of the, not just from beginning teachers all the way up through complex area superintendents. So here's a little more detail on what is in the strategic plan as it relates to the Goal 2, Staff Success, Objective 1. And you can see that in the strategic plan itself, we are talking about the importance of strengthening the teacher, principal, and educational leader development pipeline to support the shared and effective leadership at all levels. And that is exactly what the Leadership Institute does and its mission. We also, in this strategic plan, call out the critical need to support our beginning teachers, provide support for new employees to become effective, and as it relates here, the quality induction and mentoring for all beginning teachers, new principals, and leaders. So that's what you really hear about today from Dr. Ushijima and Ms. Tsukamoto. I also wanted just to remind the committee that we had proposed and the board had included in our biennium budget requests positions and resources for Leadership Institute, and we use that term. The Leadership Institute is actually a branch housed within the Office of Human Resources, and the Leadership Institute has under it two sections, one focused on administrator development and the other focused on teacher development. So the budget request that was passed through did include positions and resources for the entire Leadership Institute, the umbrella, the executive leadership of that, and then separately listed out positions and approvals for the teacher induction and mentoring group. Unfortunately, neither of those requests was included in the executive budget, and neither one currently appears in the House version of the budget. But they remain, certainly from a personnel standpoint, from an OHR standpoint, our two priority budget requests, because we all recognize the critical need to have the resources to develop our employees, especially in this case our certificated employees, from the day that they walk in. So for whatever opportunity there may be to still, support those budget requests at the legislature, we, the department, are doing that, and if the board has any opportunity to do so, we would appreciate that as well. So I'll hand over the presentation now to Teru Ushijima, and I'm available for any questions, but I'll sit back and then yield the chairs to Dr. Ushijima and Ms. Tsukamoto.
Thank you, Good morning, Vice Chairman and HR committee members. Thank you for this opportunity to provide you an update on the Leadership Institute work. Our motto at Leadership Institute is everyone a leader, everyone a learner, proud to serve Hawaii's Keiki. The purpose of Leadership Institute is to develop leadership capacity system-wide, preparing our leaders to implement systemic change and transform schools to ensure the futures of the children we serve. The last time I gave an update on Leadership Institute in November 2015, I sat here with the HR committee and shared the Leadership Institute design plan that was completed with many of the voices of our leaders in the department, which resulted in this framework that you see. The framework supports the 3 strategic plan goals. It identifies leader roles that are necessary to lead schools successfully. And it identifies the 8 competencies that were defined with input from our principals from all the complex areas. This framework, in addition, embraces the values of high expectations, equity, and cultural understanding. These are the 8 Hawaii DOE leadership competencies. And you've probably seen this before. We've had an update in the past year. We were able to identify and personalize the competencies so they better meet the needs of our state office leaders. So what you see in parentheses, the instructional and learning leadership for the state office leaders, it's system support and learning leadership. And instead of family and community engagement for our state office leaders, it's a stakeholder engagement. This slide is a tree map that shows the responsibilities of Leadership Institute in 2015. The pink highlighted areas are the areas that are part of the Professional Development and Educational Research Institute, or PDERI, programs. Today, 15 months later, these are the responsibilities of Leadership Institute. In July 2016, induction and mentoring returned to Leadership Institute, and we have taken on several new areas to support leaders across our system. Aside from induction and mentoring, this slide captures the number of leaders we've impacted through our programs and services. Next, Carolyn Tsukamoto, Educational Specialist, will provide an update for induction and mentoring, and I will return afterwards to share highlights of Leadership Institute pertaining to administrator development. Carolyn.
Good morning, Vice Chairman and HR committee members. I appreciate this opportunity, and I'm excited to be in a room with so many people who care passionately about the same thing, and that's providing the best for all of our students. Back in September, you heard testimony from beginning teachers Blake and Katrina and their mentors Sherry and Lorna. I'm pleased to say that Blake was recently recognized and received the Milken District Teacher of Promise Award. In listening to their stories, we're reminded that while our work is about student success, it also has to be about the adults too. And if we're to ensure that every student, regardless of their zip code, has an effective teacher in front of them, we must invest in a comprehensive induction program that focuses on teacher effectiveness and student learning. When we invest in strong induction programs, there's also much broader implications. Beginning with, we know, accelerating new teacher development. We know that strong induction programs at the school level can transform school culture. It also contributes to the retention of more effective and experienced teachers. Teachers have the same job description on the first day of their work as they do on the last day before they retire. And without any additional opportunities to grow and take on new responsibilities and expand their influence, a veteran teacher can become disenchanted or dissatisfied with their jobs. We know the role of the mentor in high-quality induction creates a lattice for teacher leadership. Strong programs can also support and equip principals with important instructional leadership skills, such as being able to articulate a vision for instructional excellence with their teachers and giving some tools that provide them opportunities for hard conversations with teachers should they need to. But what I'd love to share with you today is the role of the state Hawaii Teacher Induction Center as we continue to grow and sustain high-quality induction in every complex area. There are several significant milestones that have brought us to where we are today as we aim for that vision of comprehensive induction program for every beginning teacher in a system of support that includes working with a highly trained instructional mentor to accelerate teacher effectiveness and student learning. We aim to improve retention of quality teachers in the profession and strengthen teacher leadership. In August of 2011, the department established the State I&M Office in partnership with the new Teacher Center through the Race to the Top. In October of that same year, the Hawaii Teacher Induction Center collaborated with complex areas and other stakeholders, and we developed the Hawaii Teacher Induction Program Standards. These standards guide the development and the implementation of high-quality induction in Hawaii to ensure that every beginning teacher has access to a comprehensive induction program. In 2012, the work was supported by Board Policy 5100 that states that all probationary teachers shall participate in the department's mentoring program as guided by these standards. And it was also supported by HSTA Memorandum of Understanding that states that probationary teachers in their first and their second year will be provided a dedicated instructional mentor. In 2013, induction and mentoring was identified as one of 6 state priority strategies, and it continues in the new state strategic plan as a key sustaining strategy that supports staff success and teacher retention. Here's a little bit about how our work is structured and our role in growing and sustaining I&M in every complex area. Each complex area superintendent is responsible for their own complex induction program, and they have the flexibility to design and implement their programs in a way that meets induction program standards, but also addresses the unique needs of their complex area. However, there are many people that make induction successful, and this slide represents some of the various stakeholders that we work closely with. We support all 15 complex areas with program design, implementation, evaluation, and sustainability planning. Our role is developmental driven rather than compliance driven. We help complex areas and stakeholders move on a continuum of development that's grounded in the Hawaii Teacher Induction Program standards. We help complex areas and schools uncover what's important and needed for high quality induction, and we do this through two-way communication with stakeholders, through focus groups, through leadership and principal convenings, with mentor forums and trainings, as well as beginning teacher, professional learning communities, and professional development, as well as induction program coordinator networks. Along with data, our interactions inform the kind of support that we provide. One of the most impactful strategies that have allowed us to share best induction practices is through our monthly I&M CAST PLCs, which bring together our 15 complex area program coordinators together to support each other in problems of practice and sharing of innovations in the field, and engaging in professional learning to deepen their understanding of evidence-based mentoring tools and protocols. One of our goals for this community is to create conditions for collegial learning so that complex areas can support each other in addition to receiving support from the state office. We're committed to continuing our comprehensive support in the new strategic plan through the professional learning networks and a variety of other supports. As a state office, we work directly with schools, principals, mentors, and beginning teachers. And this allows us to link frontline stakeholders with the organizational vision of the department, as an important part of our work is to help translate that vision of teacher induction into action. And it begins with the focus on building induction leadership capacity. Some examples of this is the one-on-one coaching of the induction program coordinators to best support them as they help beginning teachers, mentors, and principals. We've also built up a core of group of excellent mentors, which provide nearly 100 days of mentor trainings across the state. We've built that small core of 5 mentors up to 22 state and complex area mentors. We also have facilitated the trainer of trainers to expand a beginning teacher summer academy that has been expanded from 2 state-hosted sessions to now 9 1- to 2-day sessions that are now hosted by the complex areas. In order to build that capacity, we use data to inform our critical moves both at the state and complex level to inform program goal setting and the dedication of resources. In addition, we focus on teaching skills and processes which go beyond helping complex areas and schools interpret the standards. And we do this by sharing, modeling, and co-facilitating effective induction practices through things like data-driven mentor forums that are held within the complex area and principal networks. We're excited that we're able to test innovation and new ideas and leverage the expertise of national and local partners so that we can integrate the latest research and technology that has proven results. An example of this is a pilot that we did providing veteran teaching coaching support, which was a 9-week cycle of intensive coaching for veteran teachers who had an identified area of focus that was from their EES evaluation, and using also learning how to use high impact mentoring tools for best results. Listening and dialogue and observation allow us to identify what's working, where are our bright spots, and also uncovers what are the challenges and what might be some of the unique needs of schools in complex areas. Last year we had the opportunity to visit Lanai School and have a chance to spend time listening to their beginning teachers, their site lead, their induction coordinator, their principals, and we were able to facilitate the development of a school induction program plan, and we hope to return this spring to see the progress that they're making in that plan. A foundation for all of this to occur is through the building of trusting relationships, and all of our stakeholders are critical to our work. So we do it through face-to-face collaborations with every complex area, through our professional learning communities, through coaching and consultation, through professional development that's held in the complex area that we co-facilitate and co-develop for teachers, mentors, and principals. We know we have a strong foundation, and we're prepared to expand our support through contextualized outreach. We're completely driven by the needs of teachers, principals, and schools. And here are some of the many collaborations that we're excited to build out in partnership with internal and external organizations. Just to elaborate on a few, principals continue to reach out to our office for assistance in coaching veteran teachers who are in need of targeted guidance in effective practice. We are also continuing to build out professional development and some unique mentor supports that are specific for special ed teachers. Our office has held a beginning teacher summer academy for general ed teachers for the past 4 years with very, very successful and positive results. This year we hope to expand that to have a beginning teacher summer academy specific for special ed teachers, and that will be piloted in hopefully 3 complex areas. And that's also in collaboration with the district special ed office as well as the complex area induction coordinator. We're also working very closely with the Office of Hawaiian Ed to find ways to infuse the Nahopena A'o framework as we assist complex areas and schools and teachers in their understanding and implementation of social, emotional learning and cultural induction so that we can increase equity for all students. Our office has the ability and the desire to be a change agent in the department and support all schools and teachers in service of all students. And our work would not be sustainable without the positions and funds that we've requested in our biennial budget. In closing, I just want to leave you with a quote from one of our mentors who said, "As a veteran teacher, the opportunity to step into a leadership role as a mentor has had significant impact on my own professional growth. The mentor trainings provided by the Hawaii Teacher Induction Center gave me the skills and tools needed to be a successful mentor and teacher leader. The ongoing mentor forums continue to support me in my mentoring practice, and I truly believe that I have grown in my confidence as a teacher leader. I know this will serve me well in any school leadership position. We know that mentoring falls under the larger umbrella of teacher leadership. So I'm going to turn it back over to Terry, who's going to tell you more about administrator development.
Thank you, Carol. Earlier, we've shown you how we've pulled together many different efforts together under the umbrella of Leadership Institute. Next, I will be sharing a few highlights of our recent work in these 4 focus areas of our Leadership Institute design plan. Shared leadership. Leadership is key to transforming schools. An old way of looking at leadership is where state office sets the policy agenda. The new way is involvement of school leaders in the design work prior to implementation. Some examples you will see in our department include the Deputies Roundtable and the Secondary Principals Forum, where assistant superintendents will frequently present ideas prior to finalizing implementation plans to incorporate the wisdom and voices of school leaders. Leadership Institute relies on the Advisory Council and design teams for input and feedback to guide the work we do with the aim of being cutting edge and continuously improving to build the leadership pipeline. Our Educational Leadership Institute plans are shaped by a steering committee consisting of state office, complex area, and school leader roles to design the program to meet the various needs of our leaders. An old way of leadership relies on a single authority figure. Our current system has put in place shared leadership structures as shown with some of the examples. One example is the ART CAST Professional Learning Community, where 15 complex area leads come together regularly to collaborate and learn from one another. The ART has shifted the focus from being an academic review team focused on compliance and monitoring to being an academic reflection team focused on shared leadership, focusing on school improvement. In addition, they have a voice in shaping the 2-day ART institutes held in the fall and spring and focused around effective use of data, where in addition to the ART leads, complex academic officers, resource teachers, and school teams have attended. Although Leadership Institute is the state lead for ART, we have taken a shared team leadership approach where Leadership Institute, School Transformation Branch, Data Governance, and the Deputy's Office work together in planning and facilitating sessions. Again, the Institute represents a key strategy of leadership development, one where we move away from the individual leader as authority to fully embrace the idea that everyone is a leader and everyone a learner. 1/4 of our school principals could retire tomorrow if they chose. That is why we need to rebuild the pool of school leaders. We've created new leadership opportunities for sitting principals to join us for 2-year residencies to train new vice principals and principals. This infuses current school level experiences to support our leaders and an opportunity for the principal and residents to also gain a wider perspective and new skills to become even more impactful when he or she returns to their school. We've reworked curriculum in the training so experience is more just in time and real world. An example is New Principal Academy, where the Budget Office provides an overview at the beginning of the year to new principals and returns later to do more in-depth work with the financial plan when it's just in time for the principals to work on it. This school year, we've shifted from a reliance on the National School Leaders Network, where we had to pay a fee annually, to our own Collaborative Leaders Network, where a group of principals on Oahu meet once a month to work on issues and problem solve and find ways to move their school in an upward direction. This year, we're very happy to have expanded this opportunity to a group of principals on Maui as well. The Hawaii Innovative Leaders Network is a partnership with Buck Institute and Castle Foundation for those who are passionate about project-based learning. Here we have principals along with charter school leaders who focus on the leadership aspect of project-based learning, and they look in terms of either starting it at their schools or sustaining it and moving it to the next level. And now we offer leadership and networking opportunities for state office leaders, for directors and administrators, and the learning is focused around Naho Pina'au and the state office leader competencies. We know that fit matters as much as qualification, especially in rural and hard-to-fill areas. We just refined the Sizzle screening and interview instrument to select vice principal candidates. Candidates now submit a letter of recommendation from a colleague, and their experiences on their resumes are considered in addition to the principal and complex area recommendation in their application. The interview instrument is now performance-based, designed by some of our strongest school leaders, and the interview panels not only include the CAS and PDERI staff, but also have principals. And we are working with 6 neighbor island CASs in a new learning community to explore creative and innovative ways that they can work shoulder to shoulder to build leadership in their own communities. Finally, we're always trying to get better, and we know that the top athletes and the most successful executives have coaches. All of our CASs now have executive coaches, and they're all working to provide coaching for their principals. We devote monthly leadership meeting time with our CASs and assistant superintendents of OSIS and OSIP as an academic leadership team. We focus on real problems of practice, share bright spots, examine data, and learn together. And we've brought together folks who coach our new vice principals and principals so they can continue to strengthen their coaching practice. We have learned from leading districts that have strong leadership pipelines that our selection is becoming more refined to reflect the best practices. Exit surveys and evaluations from our programs, ELI surveys, and anecdotal stories we hear from leaders tell us that the training and preparation we are providing is making a difference. So next steps. Key to transforming the quality of education is to ensure a highly qualified teacher in every classroom, a great leader in every school, complex area, and state office. Next steps include our continued work to support shared leadership, build the pool, the right skills in the right roles, and provide continuous improvement to build capacity across our Hawaii DOE so we can fulfill our vision that our keiki are truly educated, healthy, and joyful lifelong learners who contribute positively to our community and global society. Last month, our INM team presented at the 2017 New Teacher Center National Symposium on Teacher Induction, along with CASLUM Kagawa, held in San Francisco, where approximately 80 educators from around the world attended to learn more about the supports that are provided with mentoring induction here in our Hawaii DOE. This May, Leadership Institute, along with CAS Souza, CAS Ball, and Pro City Waipahu Complex Academic Office and former CAS Clayton Kaninau, we will be presenting at the 2nd Annual National Summit for our Principal Supervisors in Fort Lauderdale regarding the pipeline leadership we are doing here in Hawaii. We appreciate the many leaders in our department who have helped move our work forward, and we are thankful for community partners such as Delta Kappa Gamma, HSTA, Matson, Island Insurance, Kamehameha Schools, and the Harold K.L. Castle Foundation, who have supported our leadership work. So mahalo for your attention, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have. We're a Leadership Institute, everyone a leader, everyone a learner, and we're proud to serve Hawaii's Keiki.
Thank you. Very, very impressive. Do I have any questions? Go ahead. Oh, I have a question. I have some.
Why don't you go, Max?
Okay. I am very, very impressed with the organization. Here's my concern, and I think you have it there because you've given me examples. But for the last 6 months, the board has worked on a blueprint with the Department of Education's strategic plan.
Yes.
And everything that's been the cornerstone of that has been empowerment and innovation. I don't see that as much in here, but I'm hoping that it is, and I think it is. And I
Yes.
just want to be assured that you're not just, developing really good leaders, but leaders that kind of direct and move toward that type of management.
Yes.
At the same time, you've had statements that that are very encouraging. You said development versus compliance. That's something nice to hear from the department. You said they develop their own programs, which you're allowing them to do. Again, so you're not coming from top down. And then one of the things I would ask you to possibly consider is to go back later on when you feel proper, to go back to the teachers and say, how is this new leadership program affecting you? Is it helping? Is it helping kids to learn more? And the last thing I'm going to say is that in relationship to mentoring, I had a chance to work with John Sadowski, who actually was, I believe, the first mentor out of Central. And
He's
John
a
and I
hero
worked-
of mine.
Right, and John and I worked for years. And I think the department needs to put way more money up front in this area, because that's where the rubber meets the road and that's where the kids learn. So I'm hoping that we move in that direction. But again, I just would like to see more flavor in what we were talking about and addressing in our blueprint and strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you. So if I could just respond very briefly, and I'll try to remember the 3 points. The point about empowerment and innovation. Actually, if you take a closer look at our leadership competencies and our very first one, achievement focus, the very first descriptor talks about having that innovative school vision. And we know that innovation can happen in all of the competencies, resource leadership, change leadership. That's where you make a difference and where, it's prime for innovation and empowerment. Community and relationships, that is key. We know that a leader alone, as we mentioned, cannot make a difference if no one is with them to do the work. The second point, I'll go to the teacher mentor, third point. So yes, thank you for your support. We agree that it is very key that we support our new teachers. Teaching is probably one of the most challenging professions, and yet it by far is the most rewarding. I still miss very deeply whenever I visit classrooms, having my own students. It brings out that yearning in me. So I totally appreciate your support with that.
And don't forget the old teachers too. Sometimes they need to be mentored also.
Yes, which is part of the coaching and visiting each other's classrooms. And I remember the second point now, which is about the teacher voices. I think it's been very promising. Our new principal academy, we've had extraordinarily, I think, positive feedback from our exit surveys. We've had, we're in the 3rd cohort so far, and these are 2 years. So our first cohort in 2013 to 14, year 1, they rated 80% either good or excellent on a 4-point scale. It was poor, fair, good, or excellent. The following year, it was 87. This cohort C, it was 100%. That was for year 2. The year 2, where they're in their own learning communities and they visit each other's schools, they have their own inquiry into practice. So they're innovating and learning amongst themselves. We've had 100% for both years rate the experience good or excellent, and of that, cohort A said 89% rated it excellent and 94% rated it excellent. So, and as part of that, we do a 360 survey. So that's where the teacher voice comes in. So they do a self-reflection on the competencies, their immediate leadership team 6 months later, and a year into the job, they hear from their faculty.
So those things I would put into your presentation, because that's what interests me.
Okay. And I would love to meet with any of the board members to talk more in depth. I think could easily do, 5 hours with some of the things we have here.
Anyone else? Okay, good. Ms. Cox.
Thank you. I think you've done a lot of really great work in this. I've come from the real practical standpoint, and my mentoring was, they just asked me a bunch of questions and never told me and gave me an answer. So I'm glad that we've moved away from that. Because sometimes you just need to know what it is you're supposed to be doing. But I guess my biggest question is what I've been seeing is that some of our principals don't seem to know how to talk to their staff. In other words, I want input, but I've already made up my mind on what we're going to do, or just not knowing how to relate. And so I guess I'm concerned that we're having problems more with personality than with actually what you know up in your head. Is like, if you're the leader and you know where you want to go, but you have to get those people to work with you. So I'm wondering how you're going to be able to help. Coaching is one thing, but when you bring people into the program, I don't know what it is you're using now for the selection, but if our leaders can't relate to their staff, you're not going to get them to be able to work with them. And so that's a real concern I've had, because I've seen several instances of schools that are having problems just for that particular reason. So I'm bringing this up so that hopefully that'll be something that could be addressed in your program.
Thank you, Board Member Cox. And actually, this year we've worked on refining our interview instrument. And we have a design team, and we've gotten input from our CASs. Our design team consists of new vice principals, experienced vice principals, new principals, CASs. And we've asked, of the 8 competencies, which ones have more weight? What's most important? And both groups, they say reflection and integrity. That's one of the things you need to come in when you enter the program. And that's about integrity, right? When you say, okay, I'm going to ask for your input, but my mind is already made up. And the other competency is communication and relationships. So that's the 2 that we've really putting heavy weight on. And as Leadership Institute and PDERI, we have also been offering some adaptive schools training, which is facilitative leadership. It's how to do shared decision making, how to bring voices on the table so there's not a dominant voice, and looking at adaptive versus technical situations and how to navigate your way around that so you can get your school to the place where you want to be. Thank you.
Bruce?
Thanks, Terry. I appreciate your excellent presentation. My question kind of goes to Hubert's and change from the school level and sort of building the pool, or as we say in our strategic plan, building the pipeline from the bottom up. And this is really sort of an identification and recruitment question. And my question is, what specifically is being done to identify those teachers who are effective in the classroom, who knows what it takes to actually teach kids, but also have the potential to be effective administrators, to identify them and encourage them to apply and benefit from your leadership training. So we actually have people in the pipeline that knows what it takes at their school level, at their community.
I think in the past and currently, we have relied very heavily on our school level administrators to provide opportunities for teacher leaders to be on committees, to have leadership roles, to support other teachers. And our design plan, when we did our focus groups a few years ago, showed that that's the route that a lot of our leaders came into this position. I think that is an area that we want to do more in. You know, as a teacher, I remember looking at my principal and thinking, I would never want to do that job. And I was given a lot of teacher opportunities and even asked to go to this information session about what it is to be an administrator. And I said, oh, I went because my principal told me to go, and I said, thank you very much, I'm happy in the classroom. And it wasn't until 4 years later that I actually applied for the program. And I think so sometimes it's planting the seeds. We have our Teacher Leader Academy, which we encourage teacher leaders to attend. So in that group, we have some teachers who have the aspiration of going into administration, and others who are there because they want to be better teacher leaders at their school site. One idea that we're toying with our neighbor island CAS group is, are we able to find a way to provide temporary experiences for some of our interested teachers to maybe experience or shadow, an administrator for whatever length of time. And sometimes when a principal is put into a temporary assigned position, they kind of have a change of heart. Oh, maybe I can do this. Maybe, it's nice to make a difference, to have a wider circle of influence. And so we're hoping that, we can continue to think of innovative ways to expand our reach there.
And just, given your comment, you're correct based on statistics, the number of principals and vice principals that will be retiring soon. It seems to me that the success long-term of your program depends on building this pool, nudging particularly teachers who might not otherwise be inclined to do this, to do it, not just because of the opportunities, but also because of the training they're going to get. And I would encourage you to focus on that level of the program, the recruitment, to build the pool there. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just add a little bit about, in terms of induction and mentoring in building that pool of teacher leaders? We know that, and I can speak from experience when I was at the school level, that it wasn't until I had an opportunity or there was an entry point for my administrator to say, hey, have you ever thought about considering being a school mentor? And you don't know what you don't know at the time until you say, take that risk and try. But it's through some very clear set criteria in terms of the selection of mentors that is important. And so our office shares that selection criteria as well as some selection processes with administrators, so to help them in identifying those key teacher leaders at their schools, so that it's not necessarily always the person who's voluntold, or just because you're the curriculum coach that you are designated or identified as potential mentor. There are specific dispositions and characteristics that make for good leaders, and so though that set of criteria that we share is something that supports principals in that decision making. And I agree with you in that they need to have it from many angles. So besides from their administrator, it's always helpful from other mentors and site leads to have the conversations with them. The best training that I ever got to help me as a teacher leader was my mentor training. And I'm sure that the stories that I can tell others about how it helped support me in my role and to where I am today, it's all attributed to my mentor training. So those stories and those little anecdotes is what I think will help teachers, and I've seen themselves as a teacher leader.
And our hope is our leadership competencies, because they're defined from the teacher leader to vice principal, new principal, principal, CAS, that it's one way that as leaders in our system, whether you're an administrator or a teacher or complex area support person, that we can begin to look and provide opportunities to develop those different competencies.
Peggy?
What I have to say is really probably not your area, but I'm going to say it anyway because I want to keep saying this over and over. We have those meetings for principals to come and meet with deputy soup and so forth, but we still don't have those meetings for elementary, and that's really, really important, that especially for people on the outer, and I say outer because we're still not treated like neighbors, on the outer islands to be able to react and interact with people all across the state to get new ideas. Are you listening, Deputy? Because it's not enough to have only secondary principals meeting. Those elementary people need to have those kind of meetings too. So thank you for
And
my
as a former
soapbox.
elementary teacher, I would welcome that with open arms. Thank you.
Ken?
Can you hear me? Thank you. I really liked the program. So my question is not really directed to the details of the program, but more on the funding side, how people are selected and whatnot. So I see Barbara, I see Amy in the room. So I know we're going through the process. I know that the budget, for the biennial budget was not approved. And I know you had mentioned that you're going in to see if you can get that money. What happens if you don't get that money, and how is that going to impact the program?
Yes, part of it might be how long my battery lasts and the people on our team. I think that like other places, you know, we are dedicated to the work, we believe in it, so we would do whatever we can to try to sustain it. It has been difficult without a given budget. We've had to do unbudgeted needs requests. We're so grateful to some of our community partners who funded some of the consultants we've worked with and some of the learning opportunities. In order to sustain this work long term, and really we've planted the seeds, you know, and it's starting to grow, but in order to sustain it, we're gonna need a way to find resources to help us not just sustain it, but to grow and expand further. Oh, sorry.
Just to elaborate a little bit, we really have been very fortunate. Superintendent Matayoshi has really supported the work, and that means that she has approved these unbudgeted needs requests. So when we have the need for positions that have not been approved yet, or not approved by the legislature, superintendent has the authority and ability to approve their temporary positions, right? That's what we've done on a lot of our positions. So we're hoping that the next superintendent will likewise support the work, and to the extent necessary that we could continue with some of those temporary unbudgeted positions. We've also relied very heavily on the federal Title II funds for positions in Leadership Institute, PDERI, and the Teacher Induction and Mentoring. Until last week, we thought we were all right on those, and obviously we're all very concerned now because the Title IIA is exactly the funding that, among the funding identified in the President's proposed budget to be eliminated. So we're obviously keeping an eye on that and just starting the discussions internally about what to do. It's not only, I mean, we have, I think, something like 84 positions, most of them at the complex areas that are Title II funded. So we're starting to take a look at what we could do in the event that the worst does happen on Title II funding. We have relied very heavily on private funding. The Castle Foundation has been incredibly generous for a number of years on Leadership Institute and specifically on teacher induction and mentoring. The last of our grant funds there for teacher induction ends June 30, which is again why we've really prioritized that budget request. And I just wanted to point out that especially among the teacher induction portion of the budget request, there were sort of 3 tiers of requests. The first tier of which we had hoped would be sort of an easy yes, and that is that we have the funding, we don't have the authorized positions from the legislature. So my hope still is that at a minimum, the legislature would approve the 3 FTE counts, and that will help us to start the process of having, you know, the permanent funded positions so that we don't lose all of this fantastic work that's been done recently, because as I said, this really is the cornerstone from the state office level in terms of providing the supports for the leadership development at all levels.
So I know, Barbara, you had mentioned earlier that this program is really embedded in the HR budget. So what is the funding? What amount are you using out of your budget to fund this leadership?
Sorry, I don't have I can get that information
I
for
know
you.
you asked for like $1 million+ in your biennial budget. Is that the amount? we're looking for? Are we looking at more than that?
What we're looking for in the biennium budget, because we do have some permanent funding for it. The core of the Leadership Institute that was built out is what we've been referring to as PDERI. PDERI has been established within the department and is permanent funded for the most part. That is the function of actually certifying our administrators, our vice principals and principals. In every other state, that's a separate function that wouldn't be done within the Department of Education, but it's done internally here. So that was the starting point. For example, we have the funding and positions for what we call our cohort interns. So when somebody is admitted into the vice principal training program, we call them the sizzle candidates, they actually then sit in positions that are within Leadership Institute, now within OHR. So those are funded, for example. When Leadership Institute structure was first envisioned by several predecessors ago of mine, at the time, several vacant permanent funded positions were used to be redescribed, which is certainly within our authority. So we've been able to sort of embed some of the permanent structure as we go along. It's an incremental process, as it always is. So now what we're looking for in the biennial budget is a little over $1 million for the Leadership Institute portion of it, and that is 5 positions. And those would be 5 positions that would be permanent as opposed to the temporary funding.
You already have the position, you guys want to make it permanent?
No, well, we have at the moment, these 5 positions are temporary because they're the unbudgeted needs and Title
That's what I
II.
mean, you already have people.
Right, we have the people.
What my concern is really to see how because the program is a good one, so
Yeah.
I want to make sure that the board, at least I understand how we're going to work together to try to get this thing moving forward. So to do that, we have to understand exactly what the cost is and how we're going to support you guys. So I can just leave that for you as a ponder question kind of deal, but that's not a concern, but of interest to me as well. But going back to the institute as well, how are the participants selected? I think you mentioned that you actually sort of get recruited and you have to apply, but you don't go out and say, Terry, you're going to be an institute. And the second question to that is, how many people have gone through the program, and what are your target? How many people do you want to go through the program? What do we look at?
Okay, so
Talk about going to the program. So.
yes, we have a memo that goes out. So any teacher who is interested has the opportunity to apply. And like we said, this past year, they've had to have a colleague letter, they submit a resume so their experiences are considered in addition to the principal and CAS recommendations in the application. And then they also submit a portfolio that is reviewed, and after that step, then we have the interview process. And our interview tool this year has been refined to be more performance-based. And once they pass that stage, they go to the 2-week Summer Institute, which is both development and screening. And here we try to hone in a lot of the collaborative skills where they do scenarios. They have to think not just for themselves, but they have to communicate and come up with products with their colleagues. And then they have a year internship followed by the second year sizzle. You want numbers?
No, I think that, my question really is basically if we're not recruiting and they're volunteering, does the institute target positions? In other words, because it's a leadership institute, so do you want to target positions that are in the leadership areas, or anybody can?
We have both. Our Teacher Leader Academy, many of our teachers who are interested in pursuing more leadership for themselves, whether it is being a teacher leader at their school site or going into administrators training. We have, I'm guessing, about 40-ish. We have the fair coming up that you were invited to in April, where our teacher leaders will be sharing their projects that they had to talk to their principals, see what might help the school, and practice some of those competencies to kind of prepare them for either administration or to be even more effective at their school.
I guess the answer would be that anybody can apply, but doing the screening process is where you actually screen them out in terms of where they are in the departments or areas in terms of leadership. I mean, is that
Yes, that's correct.
So your target, do you have a target of how many people you want to go through the Leadership Institute?
We know that it's important to get the right people with the right skills and the right roles. And like I mentioned earlier, that reflection, integrity,